Welcome Andy Martino to the broadcast now. And Andy, I mean, there's so much to talk about with this Jose Reyes signing, minor league deal. He'll report to Double-A Binghamton once again, October 31st in Hawaii. He's arrested, pushing his wife into a sliding glass door. How do you think a front office in this standpoint, and we have statements from Sandy Alderson and Jose Reyes that we will show you in just a second, but how do you think a front office views something like that going into a signing like this, that potentially weighing the upside and downside?
Well, it's a great question, Doug, and especially because, as we know, this domestic violence policy in baseball is new to this season. So no teams have experience really dealing with these kinds of things, and it's an awkward calculation inherently because something that happens to somebody in their family, in their home, it's very difficult to compute that, I think, to the workplace, to the amount of games that somebody should be suspended. I mean, it's sort of absurd when you think about it. What amount of violence equals what number of games? MLB's trying here, but it's like if you zoom out and look at any workplace, if this were to happen, God forbid, to any one of us, what should our employer do? So these are very difficult questions. It resists, I think, hot takes and histrionics. And I mean, I understand that some people are dead set against Reyes coming to the Mets, and I totally think that they have the right to be. But really, to me, and to the front office, it's a head-scratcher. What they ended up relying on, I mean, I can tell you, as my colleague Chris Jackert reported, and I've heard too, Jose Reyes, his wife, Catherine, has called Mets brass this week to try to tell them that they should sign him and that things are okay. You have to just evaluate what you know of the guy, who they know very, very well, of course, and make a judgment. But it's a real tough one because how exactly does what goes on in your home equate to days suspended or future opportunities in baseball? I know I don't have the answer.
Yeah, at some point down the line, the Mets clearly learned what they felt like they needed to learn, and learned that this was a guy that both in the clubhouse and on the field could help them, even with all these things we know about what happened in Hawaii in October. And Andy, what have you heard in terms of scouts now that he's here, now that he's in the organization, again, a minor league deal going to Brooklyn? What have you heard from scouts on his ability to play other positions? Because, again, shortstop's not the Mets' problem, and that's been his position for his whole career. He's going to need to play other places.
Well, scouts have seen him play for Albuquerque this year when he was getting ready to come back from his suspension in the Rockies organization. Thought that he looked good, surprisingly good. He's 33 years old. Obviously, that's past the prime years for any athlete, really, but especially a guy who is reliant on speed in his early to mid to late 20s. But he supposedly looks really good. He's in shape. He's an elite athlete. I mean, this guy is just what we've seen on the field from him over the years. It's just as much talent, natural athleticism as you can see on a baseball field. It almost reminds you of a basketball player or something in terms of the athleticism that's on display, which you don't usually see in baseball. So there's a lot of that left, and there's a lot of that gone forever. He's 33. So he's somewhere in between washed up and the guy he used to be, and we'll find out where exactly on that continuum he falls.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we talk about the positions he's going to play, Andy, but there's also the lineup questions. You know that the Mets don't have a lot of team speed. Curtis Grainerson's the leadoff hitter, not your prototypical leadoff hitter. Do you see him overtaking that role, Jose Reyes, no matter what position he's playing, as the leadoff hitter in this lineup?
They'll play around with that. I know that Terry Collins is intrigued / leaning toward putting Reyes in the leadoff spot because that's Reyes' comfort zone. That's where he's had so much success. He's just a natural kind of thing. You look at him and you go, this guy's a leadoff guy. Now, counter to that, you have a front office who I think very smartly put Granderson in that position last year, acknowledging that Granderson was no longer so much a middle-of-the-order hitter and got on base so much that he worked in that role. So you weigh that. Obviously, Granderson's not having the year this year that he had last, and I guarantee you Alderson will have some input in how this all comes together, to say the least. So that'll be a discussion as they see where Reyes' on base and speed skills are right now.
And until about an hour and a half ago, we thought Jose Reyes potentially signing with the Mets would be the only big story of the afternoon. Turns out that was not the case. Silly us. The Mets promote Brandon Nimmo, Andy, and option Michael Conforto, who again has been really struggling. Brandon Nimmo, a guy who's been playing very well and hitting very well in Las Vegas, as that tends to happen. What are your thoughts on the move, and how do you think Michael Conforto can use this time, knowing his personality now getting sent back down?
Well, first in terms of Nimmo, I understand any time a first-round pick comes up, especially one who was drafted when most of us were in the third or fourth grade. That's exciting and interesting when he comes up at long last. But I don't think that Nimmo's seen as an impact player in the big leagues, somebody who's really going to make a difference. More of a fourth outfielder. He's made some adjustments this year that I've heard. I haven't seen personally, of course, but I've heard from scouts out on the Pacific Coast League. He's sort of made his stance more compact, less of a stride, focusing on using all fields and making contact, which has resulted in the better on base, better batting average. So that's all good stuff. He's a smart kid, bright kid, and will probably make the most out of his talent. But having said that, this is really about Conforto, not Nimmo. And a 23-year-old kid who needs some time in AAA that we all figured he might need. So I think it's totally fine. It's totally normal. When no less an authority than Keith Hernandez says that Conforto is one of the favorite hitters he's ever seen. I remember Ron and Keith both comparing Conforto to Don Mattingly last year, and those guys know what they're talking about. So I think Conforto has a bright future. Nimmo could be a nice extra outfielder someday. Maybe they could both be up with the Mets together before long, playing those respective roles.
Again, two big stories on the afternoon for the New York Mets. They signed Jose Reyes to a minor league deal, and they promote Brandon Nimmo and option Michael Conforto. Andy Martino, we appreciate the time, as always.
Thanks, Doug.